the samurai mindset was not about becoming fearless. It was about becoming mentally unbreakable. And one of its deepest ideas was Fudōshin, the immovable mind that refuses to be trapped by fear. Most people think mental strength means feeling nothing. No anxiety, no doubt, no hesitation. But that is not strength. A mind can feel fear and still remain free. A mind can experience failure without becoming defined by it. A mind can be struck by pain without remaining trapped inside the moment that caused it. That was the deeper lesson behind an idea developed in Japanese Zen and swordsmanship. The strongest mind is not the mind that never moves. It is the mind that never gets stuck. The modern image of the samurai is almost impossible to resist. A warrior stands perfectly still. His sword is ready. His face shows no fear. Nothing seems capable of disturbing him. It is a powerful image, but it can also teach the wrong lesson. Samurai were not a single, timeless group following one universal psychological code. Warriors dominated Japanese political life for centuries. Their roles changed dramatically across different periods. Their values also changed with their circumstances. The word Bushido is often presented today as an ancient code followed by every samurai. History is more complicated. Modern scholars have shown that Bushido, as a unified moral code, was shaped and reconstructed over time. Some of its most familiar modern meanings became especially powerful much later. So the deeper lesson should not be reduced to a slogan about warrior honor. There is something more interesting to examine. Certain Japanese traditions of swordsmanship became deeply concerned with the condition of the mind. What happens when fear appears? What happens when the opponent moves? What happens when the possibility of death becomes impossible to ignore? And most importantly, what happens when the mind becomes trapped by what it sees? That question leads directly to Takuan Sōhō. Takuan Sōhō was a 17th century Rinzai Zen master who wrote about Zen and swordsmanship. His writings were directed toward the cultivation of a mind that could remain free during conflict. One important recipient was Yagyu Munenori, a renowned swordsman associated with the Yagyu Shinkijiryu tradition. For Takuan, the problem was not simply fear. The deeper problem was fixation. The mind could become captured by the thing it feared. And once that happened, freedom disappeared. That idea is surprisingly relevant today, because most modern psychological suffering does not come from one event alone. It comes from what the mind continues doing with that event. Imagine receiving an email that changes your entire day. The message is short. Perhaps it contains criticism. Perhaps it contains rejection. Perhaps it carries news you did not want. The event takes 30 seconds, but the mind can replay it for 6 hours. The words return while you eat. They return while you work. They return when you lie in bed. The event happened once. The mind keeps happening to it. This is where Takuan's teaching becomes remarkably precise. In his record of immovable wisdom, Takuan explains the danger of allowing the mind to stop at one particular object. The sword can capture the mind. The opponent can capture the mind. The fear of being struck can capture the mind. Even the desire to strike can capture the mind. Once the mind becomes fixed, its freedom is reduced. Takuan's point is subtle. Immovable wisdom does not mean creating a rigid mind. It means creating a mind that cannot be held in one place. That distinction changes everything. Think about what happens during anxiety. The mind notices a threat. Then it begins staring at the threat. The threat becomes a prediction. The prediction becomes a story. The story becomes an imagined future. Soon, the body reacts to something that has not happened. The mind has stopped. Not physically, psychologically. It has stopped on one possibility. And that possibility begins controlling everything else. This is why a person can be sitting safely at home while feeling as though danger is everywhere. The problem is not always the thought itself. The problem is the mind becoming trapped inside the thought. That is the first principle of the samurai mindset. A thought can appear without becoming a prison. There is a dangerous misunderstanding here. If the goal is an immovable mind, perhaps emotion should be suppressed. Perhaps fear should be crushed. Perhaps sadness should be ignored. Perhaps anger should be hidden. That is not the deeper teaching. An immovable mind is not a frozen mind. It is not emotionally dead. It is not hard like stone. Takuan's understanding is closer to freedom than rigidity. The mind remains responsive because it is not attached to one particular point. This is why the word immovable can be misleading. The mind is not immovable because it refuses to move. It is immovable because nothing can permanently pin it down. That is a very different kind of strength. A fragile person often thinks strength means controlling every emotion. A stronger person begins to understand something else. An emotion can be felt without being obeyed. Fear can appear without becoming a command. Anger can appear without becoming an identity. Sadness can appear without becoming a permanent definition of life. This does not mean becoming detached from reality. It means becoming less captive to internal reactions. The distinction matters. Suppression says, "Do not feel this." Fudōshin points towards something different. Feel it, but do not become trapped there. That is a much more demanding form of strength. Because pretending not to care is easy. Remaining open while fear is present is harder. Remaining clear while uncertainty is present is harder. Remaining humane after disappointment is harder. Mental strength is not the absence of emotional movement. It is freedom within emotional movement. Fear has a strange property. The harder the mind tries to eliminate it, the more attention fear can receive. A person feels anxious. Then another thought appears. Why am I anxious? Then another. What if something is wrong? Then another. What if this never stops? The original feeling has now multiplied. Fear is no longer simply fear. It has become fear about fear. This creates a psychological loop. The mind detects discomfort. It resists the discomfort. The resistance increases attention. Attention increases perceived importance. Perceived importance increases fear. Then the mind tries even harder to escape. The circle continues. This is exactly where the samurai metaphor becomes useful. A swordsman cannot afford to become fascinated by one movement. If the mind becomes completely occupied by the opponent's blade, the next movement can be missed. The same principle appears inside modern anxiety. One frightening thought becomes the entire field of attention. Everything else disappears. The mind loses its peripheral vision. That is what fixation does. It narrows reality. Fudōshin does not demand that fear disappear. It demands something more subtle. Fear does not have to become the center of consciousness. A person can notice fear. A person can recognize uncertainty. A person can acknowledge pain and still leave mental space around it. That space is freedom. The question is no longer, how can this fear be destroyed? The deeper question becomes, what happens when fear is present, but no longer controls where the mind must stay? That is a completely different relationship with fear. Modern life quietly teaches a dangerous belief. Before moving forward, everything must feel certain. The decision must be correct. The future must look safe. The outcome must be predictable. Other people must approve. The plan must work. Only then can the mind relax. But certainty is an impossible condition. Nobody knows exactly what tomorrow will bring. Nobody knows how another person will respond. Nobody knows whether an opportunity will succeed. Nobody knows whether a carefully designed plan will survive reality. Yet the mind keeps demanding guarantees. This demand creates enormous psychological pressure. A person does not merely want success. They want certainty about success. They do not merely want love. They want certainty that love will never disappear. They do not merely want a career. They want certainty that the decision will never become a mistake. The mind becomes trapped because it wants reality to promise something reality cannot promise. The samurai tradition offers a harsher perspective. A warrior cannot demand certainty from an opponent. The opponent moves independently. The battlefield changes. The body becomes tired. Fear appears. The future remains unknown. The mind must still respond. This is why Takuan's teaching is not really about becoming fearless. It is about remaining free enough to respond. That distinction matters outside combat. A person can make a decision without knowing the entire future. A person can experience rejection without knowing what comes next. A person can lose something without knowing what will replace it. Uncertainty does not have to become paralysis. The mind can remain open inside uncertainty. That is another form of fudoshin. Pain is unavoidable. Possession is different. A failure can hurt, but the mind may later turn that failure into an identity. I failed. Then, I am a failure. A relationship can end. Then, I was rejected. Then, nobody will ever choose me. A person can make one mistake. Then the mistake becomes a story about the entire self. This is how psychological suffering expands. The original event becomes smaller than the meaning attached to it. The mind takes one moment and builds a permanent room around it. That is fixation. And fixation is one of the great enemies of mental freedom. The samurai mindset offers a different possibility. A wound can be real without becoming an identity. A loss can be real without becoming the entire future. A mistake can be real without becoming a permanent verdict. This does not make pain disappear. It gives pain a boundary. The mind says, "This happened," instead of, "This is who I am." That small distinction can change the entire structure of suffering. Because the human mind is constantly tempted to turn temporary experiences into permanent conclusions. One bad day becomes a bad life. One rejection becomes unworthiness. One failure becomes destiny. One painful conversation becomes proof that nobody understands. The event is temporary. The interpretation can become permanent. Fudōshin interrupts that transformation. It allows the mind to recognize what happened without becoming imprisoned by the meaning it immediately creates. There is another illusion worth destroying. Mental unbreakability does not mean becoming impossible to hurt. That standard is unrealistic. People lose people they love. Plans collapse. Bodies become tired. Reputations change. Opportunities disappear. Some wounds take years to heal. The goal cannot be to become a person whom nothing affects. That person would not be strong. That person would barely be human. The deeper strength is different. Something can hurt you without owning you. Something can frighten you without commanding you. Something can disappoint you without defining you. Something can change your life without determining the meaning of your life. This is where the image of the samurai becomes useful again. The strongest warrior was not necessarily the one who felt nothing. The deeper ideal was the person who could remain capable of responding when circumstances became difficult. The mind could move. The body could respond. The situation could change. Yet attention did not become permanently imprisoned by one detail. Takuan's teaching takes this even further. In his explanation of immovable wisdom, the mind must remain free rather than becoming attached to a single object. That freedom is what allows appropriate response. This is why mental resilience is not about becoming harder. Sometimes becoming harder only makes a person more brittle. A rigid mind can shatter when reality contradicts it. A free mind can adapt. And adaptability is one of the quietest forms of strength. This leads to the deeper meaning of the title. What makes the samurai mindset mentally unbreakable? Not the sword, not aggression, not emotional suppression, not the fantasy of having no fear. The deeper answer is this. A mind is difficult to break when it cannot be permanently trapped. Trap it in fear, and fear controls perception. Trap it in anger, and anger controls judgment. Trap it in regret, and the past controls the present. Trap it in certainty, and reality becomes an enemy. Trap it in identity, and every challenge becomes personal. But when the mind remains open, something changes. Fear can arise. The mind does not have to live there. Regret can arise. The mind does not have to build a home there. Uncertainty can arise. The mind does not have to demand an answer immediately. Pain can arise. The mind does not have to turn pain into identity. This is the practical meaning behind the ancient metaphor. Not practical in the sense of a checklist. Not another productivity technique. Not another ritual to complete. It is a change in the structure of attention. The question is no longer, how can life stop disturbing me? The better question is, why does this moment have to control the entire mind? That question creates distance, and distance creates choice. The samurai did not possess a magical mind. They were human. They experienced fear. They experienced loss. They experienced uncertainty. What makes the deeper tradition worth remembering is not the fantasy of invulnerability. It is the pursuit of freedom under pressure. Takuan Sōhō's teaching points toward a mind that does not become fixed on the sword, the opponent, the fear, or even the desire to win. The mind remains available. It can respond. It can move. It can see. It can change. That may be a better definition of being mentally unbreakable. Not becoming someone whom nothing can hurt. Becoming someone whom pain cannot permanently imprison. Because the strongest mind is not the mind that never moves. It is the mind that never gets stuck. So perhaps the question is not whether life can break you. Perhaps the deeper question is this: What has your mind been trapped by? And what would remain of you if it finally let go?